Hey, welcome. I'm Albert Bosazan, and today I'm going to show you how to create images with transparency in your Stable Diffusion web UI. Now, why would you want that? You can just cut it out later, right? Well, yes, if you have the time and effort, but some things are practically impossible to cut out well, like, for example, frizzy hair or fur, or even half-transparent things like glass and ice cubes. And this extension, LayerDiffusion, generates the images transparent right away, so you save a ton of time or even do things that were otherwise not possible before. Now, when I first talked about LayerDiffusion on my LinkedIn the other day, I got thousands of impressions and a ton of people asking for a tutorial on how to use it, so here goes. Enjoy! The first thing you need to have in order to do this is fundamental experience with Stable Diffusion, ideally the Stable Diffusion web UI. So if you've seen what is up on screen right now before and know what most of the buttons mean, you're probably ready for this. If not, I strongly recommend going back to my videos or some of the videos I have recommended in the video description in order to learn these basics. This might look like what I've recommended in the past, the Auto 1111 web UI. It is in fact not. It is something called Forge, which is an improvement upon that. And you can get it under this GitHub link, which I've also linked below, of course. It is by the same person who came up with ControlNet and Focus, both things I've made videos on. And it's basically just way faster and more stable than the Auto 1111 web UI. So you can see up to 75% speed increase if you have the right NVIDIA GPU. It's very impressive, and since we switched to it at work, we have not used the old web UI again. Basically, that's how great it is. Why do you need this? Well, it's because the extension that I'm about to show you builds on top of it. And to get this extension, you go to a different GitHub, to something called SDForge LayerDiffuse. And what you do is you copy this link, go to your web UI, extensions, install from URL, and paste it in here and hit install. And it should install pretty quickly. Then you can go to your installed tab, make sure it's on, SDForge LayerDiffuse, that checkbox is there, and then you have to apply and restart your UI. Once your UI has restarted, you'll see this new tab down here called LayerDiffuse. If you open it, it's very simple. You can just hit enabled. And then down here, you'll have a couple methods. These differentiate themselves mostly between 1.5 models, which are of course lower resolution, and SDXL. So let's make an SDXL, only generate transparent image first. I'm going to pick attention injection because the creator of the extension says it's better than the other one, so why not? And the rest is much as usual. So let's generate something that could be a little difficult to cut out usually. Photo of a woman with frizzy hair wearing a fur coat. Settings are as they would be with any SDXL model, so make sure the resolution is at least 1024 by 1024, and we hit generate. Be aware that the first time you generate using the LayerDiffusion model, it is going to download the model that fits the method that you chose. But this is a one-time only thing, so don't worry too much about it. They're pretty small files, no problem unless you're using my internet connection. And unlike normal generations, you can immediately see that it's creating it with this gray background. And that tells you LayerDiffusion is working because it's now, in the final couple steps, going to make that transparent. And here you can already see the result. This is, the classic kind of alpha grid, so you can tell that it's transparent. The hair is cut out really well. The fur, absolutely no problem. Her hands are messed up, but whose AI hands aren't? This first image is a preview with a grid background, and the second one is the actual one with alpha. So if we copy this, I can demonstrate by just putting it in front of a color background, and you can see it's actually transparent. So if I change this hue, it's pretty perfect and very useful. So now let's do something more fun, more weird, just to demonstrate the power of this. Let's do something with water. A large tsunami wave, splashes of foam, something like that, And just to demonstrate, we can do anything else that we would do with SDXL normally. You can change the resolution, for example. You can change the CFG scale. None of that impacts the result. It's always going to work well. And you can see it really got those details. So all those little splashes are all here. You can see kind of the foam in the air. It works really well for all kinds of uses. just to demonstrate, let's do this test again. You really got those tiny little pixel precise details going on, which is really neat. Now, of course, you might be wondering, okay, but the water itself isn't transparent. It's a pretty thick wave, and you have to know this, of course, is limited that it doesn't have refraction or any sort of physical stuff that you would need 3D rendering for, right? So you're never going to get that with a normal PNG, but it can approximate it. So you'll get pretty far with kind of standard transparency. Excellent. So now you can generate images with transparency using SDXL models. But what if you want a fitting background to this foreground that you've generated? Well, it's very easy. You have that setting here in LayerDiffuse by choosing another method. For example, SD 1.5 generate everything together. Together. Generate everything together. So we just click that. And again, we can do whatever we want. So how about a portrait of a man with frizzy hair? Then make sure you pick a 1.5 checkpoint. Let's stick in the Juggernaut family. So I'm going to do Juggernaut Reborn. And remember to change your resolution back down to 1.5 sizes. So 512 by 512. You might be tempted now to click this high-res fix if you know what that is, because it will upscale. It'll give you a bigger result despite the lower original resolution. Unfortunately, that does not work with LayerDiffuse. It'll give you broken results, so we can't do that. Another thing you need to watch, this method needs a batch size of 3 because you're generating 3 images at once now, the foreground, the background, and both of them together. So make sure your batch size is on 3. And now let's generate. And here's your man. But what's this? Who's this other man? Well, this is actually the background it generated. Together, it looks okay, a little weird, but of course you don't want your subject in both the foreground and the background. You just want one of them. So what do you do about that? Well, the creators of LayerDiffusion do have a fix for you. They have this foreground additional prompt and background additional prompt. In order to use them, you have to actually remove your primary prompt out of here. So everything you don't want in the background, you put down here, man with frizzy hair. And if you want something specific in the background, you can, for example, say city library indoors, something like that. And there you go. Here's your transparent man. Here's your man in front of his background. And here's just your background. Obviously, the quality is lacking because my prompt is terrible. But in theory, that's how it works. After playing around with this for a bit, a question that came up immediately was, can I use this for images that already exist, right? If I'm editing something real, a real photo in Photoshop, can I maybe put it in the image to image tab and let LayerDiffusion run over it? I tried, unfortunately not, at this point at least. Let's hope that feature gets added in the future though, because that would make it really, really special. If you liked this video, be sure to click down there and actually like this video and subscribe to my channel. If you're already subscribed and a longtime viewer of my videos wondering why I haven't been posting as much, that's because I've been working full-time day in and day out with AI in my job as creative director of Storybook Studios. That's a production company specialized in using AI for feature film and series production. So if that sounds exciting to you, be sure to also follow me on LinkedIn, where you'll get project updates from me every couple of days. Either way, see you next time and have fun with Stable Diffusion.